system, petitions and stuff for the new board.
Okay.
Do you have Jenny?
6:28.
So. Let me check. Here, everybody stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody, to the regular meeting of the Culver Board of Zoning Appeals. Start with roll call.
Dan Adams,
Present.
Barry McManaway, Dan Osborne,
Present.
Andrew Melson,
Present.
John Christ, present, and Jenny Monroe as interim building commissioner.
I would entertain a motion that we approve the minutes from November 17th and December 15th. Been moved and properly second. We approve the minutes from those two meetings. Any further discussion?
Who seconded?
Mr. Osborne. All those in favor of the motion, by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Please sign both of these, please. That one doesn't have that thing at the bottom. And here. So looking at the minutes. Row, this we need to reorganize since it's the January, first meeting in January. to look at reorganizing. President. I am willing to stay on as president if the board so wishes. Been moved and seconded that I stay on as president of the board. Any further discussion? In favor? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Vice President? Manaway is Vice President.
I have nothing to say. But not yet been appointed. Council.
Interesting. We do it right here. Do I hear a motion for that? I make a motion. Moved and seconded with Mr. Manaway be appointed as vice president for 2023. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And now, the most important job. Secretary. I hope Mr. Fist is going to volunteer to be secretary again, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm willing to.
I would entertain a motion that we. This one.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded, Mr. Fisk will be secretary for 2023. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? He didn't even oppose it. did he?
No, I said aye.
Thank you, Mr.
He's too busy taking.
My typing skills leave something to be desired.
Okay, the first item, first petition on the agenda this evening is 2023 B 100613. And Mr. Easterday will be presenting this on behalf of Sage Road II LLC.
Good
Mr.
evening,
Easterday.
James Easterday. We were before you in a previous meeting, which you granted a variance. One of the stipulations of that variance was that we take down the present structure on the property within 6 months of the occupancy permit on the barn. And we're back tonight just asking that that be changed to be 6 months from the occupancy permit on the clubhouse. We would probably even say the field house, if the field house sits right over the barn, that we're going to take down. So basically what we're asking is probably about another 6 or 8 months. So we can build both of those projects during construction materials in that building and then go from there.
In the minutes from that meeting, and I was just looking back at those minutes a little bit ago. The one thing, and it had the pictures here of the barn. I think these are different pictures, and we were, one of the things that, in fact, the only variance I think that we were talking about at that point
The silo.
was the silo. Was that, it's not,
Still there.
oh, it's still there. It's not in the picture.
It just.
That's why it's
shown in this particular view.
And that is the only building where any residential area will be. Is that correct?
No, there will be residential area in the club. But it's not PUD.
Oh. Okay. So, but so we don't need the height. Thing. That's all I was concerned about.
Will it be built simultaneously as the barn?
We're gonna build the barn first. In fact, we will start the barn as soon as we get IDEM approval. We've applied for IDEM approval for stormwater drainage and discharge. And then as soon as we get that, we'll start the barn. As soon as the barn's completed, we'll go to the clubhouse. As soon as the clubhouse is completed, we'll go to the field. And the field house sits right on top of the present structure.
Okay.
So what you're asking for then in this is just changing it from requiring the removal of present structure within 6 months of technical occupancy for the clubhouse. Which is wrong. Okay. Just changing the terminology.
My question is, this variant is by when we still have home, correct?
That's correct.
And now with PUD, not Texas. Is this variant still five and can be done?
Well, it was suggested to me that the variance would not be necessary at this point in time, but I'll always be real blunt. I came before you, I presented a plan, and you approved it based upon that plan, and I did not want to change that without coming back to you folks again. I felt as an ethical matter, I had to do it.
Do we have to do a finding of facts on this?
I think so.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the gallery? None? We'll move to finding of facts.
So you're asking for a 6 month or 8 month? Have I heard of 6 to 8 months?
Yes, 6 months. 6 months from occupancy. From that point to-
And while we're preparing for this, I forgot to mention we are being recorded. So do know that, and we do have people online, I'm sure. So, and I forgot to open it up. Did anybody have any questions online? If we can't have anybody wanting to say anything. finding of fact. Just remember that if you vote no on any of these three questions, you must vote no on the variance. And then based upon the evidence submitted, I find that number one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Mr. Mesha,
Yes.
Mr. McManaway.
Yeah.
Mr. Osborne,
Yes.
Mr. Chris,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Mr. Mesha.
Yes.
Mr. McManaway. Mr. Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. Chris.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Number three, the strict application in terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in use of the property. Mr. Mesha.
Yes.
Mr. McManaway.
Yes.
Mr. Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. Chris.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. I entertain a motion to the previous variance. Get moved and properly second. If we approve this variance, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes.
Mr. Mesha, Mr. McManaway.
Yes.
Mr. Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. Chris.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Approved by all.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Easterday.
Have pranced around a little bit. I had 4 hip replacement surgery. Technology, wonderful.
And not even a correct. Amazing.
It's amazing.
Can I get you?
I got it.
Yeah, sorry.
At night. Thursday.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is petition 2022B 100271. Petition filed by Mirar Custom Homes. Who is presenting that this evening?
My name's Sarah Jones with Mirar Custom Homes.
Can
I
you
don't know,
move
want
up?
me to come up there?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do, please, if I call on you, please give your name so the secretary can get down the names of everybody. Thanks. Oh, then
So I guess I have to apologize if I jump around a little. We had an attorney that was supposed to be here tonight to represent us and present this and had an emergency situation, so stuck with me. Anyway, a few of you do know quite a bit about this property and what we're proposing to do here. Just a quick background is we have applied for the town for this to become a PUD. So with PUD, we would be looking at setbacks and ordinances for the PUD. And we have gotten unanimous approval from the planning commission numerous times and the town council passing this, but due to some planning commission procedural issues, we've had to come here tonight to get some variances or ask for some variances for the property. There was a time lapse from when this building was burned down and was cleared to when the town could actually sell it at sheriff's sale. And with that time lapse, it made the expiration of building on the same footprint that expired. So that is no longer an option, which is a hardship for us. But what we feel what we are proposing to do there is actually a better use of the property than what would have been done presented as commercial on that same footprint. The plan was carefully developed. We started with a basic plan. We worked with some town members and we listened to many of the neighbors' comments and concerns as well, and redesigned a number of times. And we feel we've got a good project here, and that is very consistent with the town's master plan for needing more diverse housing. The proposal is 6 units, only 2 stories with 2 on-site parking spaces per unit. Look at, I think you have the site plans. Site plan.
Yeah, I printed those with your packet.
What we're requesting is a front setback of 5 feet. It's important to note that that 5 feet is from the back side of the sidewalk. There's actually 4 feet of sidewalk and then a 5-foot parkway from the curb on the street. There is also on both front corners of the property, there's one of those turning bubbles that bumps the curb out another 3 feet. So from that point, we'd be looking at 17 feet from the front of those bubbles to the front of the building. For the sides, we are asking for a 5-foot setback on both east and west sides. The previous building had 0 on the east side and a parking lot on the west side, which had 0 green space. That parking lot went right up to the sidewalk there. On the back, we're asking for a 3.5-foot setback from the property line. That would be detached garages that would go on that back property. And that property behind there actually extends all the way. It's one parcel from Coolidge all the way to Lakeview Street. We would be the home that's close to the property on the southwest corner, Dervick's home. It would be 19 feet back of the building would be from their home, with 5 foot of green space around their house. And previously there was 0 green space there, as the eaves of their property are over the property, over our property. The hardship for this property is that it's surrounded by 3 streets. So the current setbacks that you would have to meet would basically make it unbuildable. They're in your photo books there. There's page 1 has aerial photos of the property. So you can see there where the eaves of that house go to the property line. There's also a garage on the property to the south of it, and that actually is over the property line as well. The neighbors, Dervick's, the home that's right there next to the property. You can see in the packets there are pictures of what the area looked like prior to the fire in 2019. Dervick's purchased that property with this building next to it, knowing that they had a wall along the back of their home. They had a dumpster right outside their bedroom door. We feel that what we are proposing is a better situation for them as far as green space, gives them a little more openness around their property, not as invasive of what was there before. What we are proposing is less non-conforming and does provide more open space. We've also included on page 4 of your packet there some pictures after the fire. Many of us remember that, but it was quite a mess. The town had to put substantial funds into this property, not only after the fire and cleaning out this property, but prior to it. We can get this previous owner bring things up to code and make it less unsightly and safe for the neighborhood. So the town has put quite a bit of cost into the property. So by the time we got the sheriff's sale, it is quite an expensive property. And what we purchased the property to hopefully improve the beautify the neighborhood, our residents, nearby residents to this property. We feel that the development we're proposing is consistent and complements the surrounding area. There's many photos in your packet there, pages 6 through 8 are front setbacks in the area. Page 6 is homes that are on that right surrounding the property, across the street to the south, the east and west. Pages 9 through 11 shows your side setbacks within a couple of blocks of the property. going around there, we only found one home that actually on the whole entire block that conforms completely to the current ordinance. So we feel that what we're doing would fit nicely in here. There are barely a handful of homes in a 3 to 4 block radius, as everyone knows, that are actually completely conforming to our statutes. There have been many variances granted by this board in the area on State Street, home on Washington and Lakeview, and some other surrounding properties that we built. This would go along with what they were choosing to do. One question we do have, and that's why we didn't include that in our application, is the corner sightline. We have Dean and James Booth from Mecca Engineering, who actually engineered and developed the plan for us. As there is a question in the ordinance of these corner sight lines, it reads one way and wording and on the diagram that's in our Culver ordinance. What that.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we noted this in the variance request. Is because of the inconsistency. The handout I gave you, the page I gave you for the developmental standards. In the description above, it talks about the measuring that 50-foot line from the property lines. And then you scan down the page, it gives you a depiction of how you're supposed to do that. And those go from the edge of the pavement. So that makes some significant difference, as well as the fact that, you know, a general rule of thumb is you go for the center of the road, but Culver has their own standards, and that's what we try to follow. But you can't follow them if you don't know what the correct answer is, and the consistency is not there with this thing. And you know, James dug in on this when they were doing the plan for the site. You know what we would need to do. Try to meet that as much as we can, but that's why we ask for the variance, because that need that whole diagram if you know, if we don't know which pitch of the ball.
Going along with Sarah's point earlier, additional hardships due to setbacks. Going along, and we took a look and now analyzed the property and see with either of these designs with these setbacks, how it would affect the property. And it would essentially render the property unbuildable in many situations, making the properties very difficult to actually improve anything on without a significant loss to whoever's actually constructing and building on the property. And along with that, PDOT actually defines how site triangles are to be designed, and a lot of that to do with actually speed limits, especially on whatever road it would be turning onto. Obviously, in Culver, there is a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit. This allows for a substantially reduced, lesser than what's actually required by the town, site triangle. And so we feel that, along with following the state standards for sightline distances, that asking for these variances would not cause any potential issues. Along with that, with the packet that are photos that Sarah and Dean have presented, there are many photos of corner lots that have similar sight lines to just help show precedence throughout the town. That this is not something that would be unique to the town.
And speaking of the visibility situation too, when you approach that intersection on Lakeview going towards Lakeshore, there would not, you know, if you talk about nothing that impairs the vision for 2.5 feet up the, we don't plan on any plantings along that parkway. There's some old light poles that will probably be removed that we would not replace or put in there into the sight line. So when you pull up to the corner now, I mean, you can see clearly way down the street, all the way to the cruise and the other way as well. So we don't feel that we're causing any kind of safety concern at that corner, at either corner.
It was said actually wanted there to visit. They were gonna sat there and looked, and he said he could see all the time with the theater past the area. And look at the previous pictures of the building was there before that corner on the northeast side, went right up to the sidewalk, and that was when Coolidge. There was quite a bit of traffic coming in and out of there. We live right across the street. I don't ever recall seeing an accident there in all the years. I don't do anything that has ever been designated a dangerous area, even with what was there before. Ours doesn't more of a site.
I was just getting ready to ask that question. It's Coolidge Court is one way. Does that make a difference?
And we also took that into account when we talked about traffic flow, because there was an early concern about traffic flow around the development and into the neighborhood. The way we have traffic flow set up is you go south on Coolidge, you turn right into the development, and there's a throughway with the driveway coming out on Lakeview. So you're basically relieving South Coolidge, Washington, and back up Lakeview up to the development of any additional traffic. Basically going through the development and back out. That's Lakeview.
Just a few final notes on that, what we feel the benefit of this is. This is in the TIP district. So this going through will help bring revenue to the town. We feel it'll increase the values of the surrounding properties, just as the harbor condos have done and the beach view condos. We have photos of those developments in the back there. This development would be very similar to that beach view. And that one is the one close to the fire station. And the front of that, the photos, their balconies are right on that alleyway there. And then they have their on-site parking with you. Again, without variances, this lot would be a hardship to put anything on the way it is, or with the current ordinance. The fines on, or the trees on three sides, and the town.
I did not get your name.
Oh, James Canoe.
Can you spell?
Yeah, KNUDH.
What are the one?
So going along with the ordinance, we do need the that's stable ordinance of
What is state ordinance?
from basically center line of the roads. 50 feet, which we issues start becoming where you start drawing that line. The further you bring it towards the roads and into the property, it cuts off a substantial portion of that. We're looking for a variance to allow for more creative use of it.
Just to mention, excuse me, from the front of the building to the back of the sidewalk is 5 feet. Sidewalk is 5 feet. And then there's another 4 feet of parkway, the face of the curb. These bubbles on each end, the pedestrian bubbles, go out an additional 3 feet. So, when you're sitting here at the corner, you're out at the front of that bubble. So 5, 10, 14, 17 feet basically. And then this shows the green space on the edges of the building. The space between the residents next door, green space in the backside of their home.
Don't need any kind of height variance there. The units are all two-story units, 25 feet high in the front, due to elevation in the back or 20 feet.
This is the highest in the building, some grade.
Fits well with the two-story homes in the area.
I've seen it.
Okay, any questions from the board? Yes.
No, other than, I know you're asking for us to, that's exactly how you worded it. Provide a variance for visibility. I mean, do we need to specify something
Yeah.
in terms of feet or what?
There's a proposed triangle in the packet you have.
Please mute yourself.
And these variances, the plan commission has approved the project contingent upon these variances being granted. So when we do go back to the plan for the recommendation, hopefully the recommendation for them to send it to the town council for the final approval and changing. Oh, yeah, those, we have removed those. That was the question before. They weren't balconies, they were
Right.
wrought iron
Decorative,
railings
right.
for aesthetic purposes that were gonna be on the front and the middle window on the second story. But it's noted at the last meeting that that will be into that 5 feet. So we'll be removing those. It's nicer at the moment, but a little less pretty from, but we'll still make it look really. Yeah, so the 5 foot will be,
Face,
yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Just one.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm
go ahead, Mr.
still not
President.
clear exactly how much we're asking for in terms of distance. According to the fact that there's inconsistencies.
Right, if we're going by the diagram or are we going by the wording? There's the.
well, by the center of the road, there's not even a question. But if you're going by the two, either or's
So then,
developmental standards, then we've got to have a variance for, I don't know, approximately each way in the front of the building.
But could you say that you're granting it to be 50 feet from the center of the road that is in line with the state? with the state?
I'm sorry?
We would have to go with the variant zoning and require.
Okay.
I think they're also asking them, do you go by the diagram or do you go by the text?
That was just a confusion on our end. But the variance.
Yeah, I just want to get it on record, so,
Right.
you know, as to what we're giving or going to approve. Hopefully approve. So we're saying 50 foot from the center of the road or what?
That's not what the developmental standards say, but they say either you're measuring from the property line or you're measuring from the edge of the building. So which,
So we're requesting a variance out from the site line distances to accommodate the.
and that's what's shown in the.
Okay, can you say that again?
Absolutely. We are requesting a variance from the visibility requirements to accommodate the proposed buildings as presented.
Okay, comments?
Sorry. I've got a question for you, Jenny. So I'm a little bit foggy on the question about the zoning. This is currently zone C2, correct? So this variance that they're requiring is under this, a C2 premise, or is it under some other, is it other, what zoning are we looking at if this changes? Like if it goes to the PUD, what, does that change the zoning?
You're approving or not approving a variance on this being a PUD. So these development standards for PUD, they need a variance to get it to be a PUD. And so as Mr. Clevenger, the attorney, directed, you need to hear a variance hearing on this as if it could become a PUD, because Plan Commission needs your recommendation on whether or not you would approve this variance on a PUD before they can approve it as a PUD.
Is clear as mud? Yes, so how does that change actually the zoning? What is the zoning on? Is it classified at all, or?
It's a PUD, that's something.
Right,
And-
okay, so that's what it is. It's not.
Planning cannot even rezone. The zone that doesn't have the advantage for the. This is new. In order
Right, you're not approving a variance on the C2. These are variance development standards on.
And even if this is approved, we can do that, they'll do plan for it. And just, yeah, I think it's,
So it disappeared.
this is zoning. Under, yeah,
Yes.
plan commission has reviewed it. But plan commission and the number two, yeah. Said you're going to try. So you could have to prove that, could be approved.
Here's my question is, easy, hasn't been changed zoning. Is it finally?
They will go back to the Plan Commission.
Yes.
And that's a recommendation to the town council, which is really the ultimate decision.
Okay, I'll open it up to the floor. One.
I'm Steve Snyder. I'm here on behalf of several people who own property that with Jeff Mansfield, Matt Nagel, Anthony Northrop, Stephen Northrop, Robert Darrell, and Wendy Darrell. First, I understand the confusion of it goes to the Plan Commission, then it has to come to you, then it goes back to the Plan Commission, then it goes to the town council. Just so that it's in the record, there is a copy of the Palmer's order from the last proceeding that explains why that has to be done. And so that we know what we're dealing with and what our instructions are for this time around. The planned unit development zoning classification has its own development standard in your zoning ordinance. And all of those standards either have to be met or you have to grant a variance from them for this project. And I'll be very honest, when I read the notice of the hearing, I tried to figure out exactly what variances were being requested, and I could only come up with a couple. Okay, I understand the front, rear, and side setbacks, that's pretty obvious. But there was no requested variance for the garage. And there's a specific developmental standard in your ordinance that the garages have to be 10 feet back from the property line. We're only talking about the primary building that they're looking for setbacks from. So I just want to walk through some of those. But most importantly, and you know this, you see it every time you have a hearing. The fact is, you have to find all three of them present in order to vote in favor of the approval of the bill. First one, the variance approval cannot be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general law. That's pretty good. Some safety issues. I think you've already heard the confusion about site map, how that's going to be affected. Secondly, the use of value of areas adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. That's substantive for you to determine. But based upon your own experience, that's why you're here, that's why you're on board. Using your own experience to make that. And finally, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. However, those practical difficulties can't be something that is self-created by the property owner or the business. That's a significant factor. But anyway, we're looking for a front setback variance from the ordinance. It can be 5 feet. Developmental standards in a PUD district, so it has to be 50 feet. We're looking for side variances of 5 feet. The PUD developmental standards say setbacks have to be 15 feet. We're looking for 3.5 feet in the rear, and the developmental standards for PUD zoning across the 50 feet has to be 25 feet. I finally think I understand the visibility variance that's being requested, but I still can't tell what the dimensions are and how you can actually approve it without some specific dimensions from a spot of measurement that is open at those two intersections. But there are some other variances that haven't been. A planned unit development requires a minimum square footage of 21,700. And we know we have roughly 7.9 actually in this set. No variance has been requested for that. Planned unit development requires a lot width of 300 feet. We don't have that here, and there's no variance requested for it. Planned unit development requires minimum access to a public right of way of 100 feet. As shown by the proposed plan. Requires 2 parking spaces per unit. We're saying that those having unique configurations, and my wife and I would have an argument over this as to who just park in the garage and who needs the car every time he wants out. That's how that would work. But there are 12 parking spaces too. There are 11 parking spaces and 1 federally and state required handicap space. Can't be used by anybody unless you're handicapped. So there are only 11 spaces. They haven't requested the configuration of putting a parking space directly behind a garage. Question whether the garage can even accommodate it, because the ordinance requires that path direct access to the garage. If there's car behind it, it won't have direct access. The visibility requirement also applies to these parking spaces. Because in a planned unit development district, and that's your section 6-120C12, you have to have the same visibility availability, meeting your zoning requirements for this parking area, as you do for the front corners of the building at the intersection. We're dealing with 2 structures, the main structure, where there will be 6 residences, and then an accessory structure, defined under your ordinance section 6-010. The garage has its own setback requirements that have to be met, but are different from the principal structure. Accessory structure has to be 10 feet from the rear line, 10 feet from the sideline, And one half of the distance required from principal structure from the right of way. Which means half of that distance in a flood distance is for 25 feet. Plan doesn't meet those requirements. And if they request the variance, then any of those items that was discussed. The driveway, we have at least a proposal that this will solve a traffic problem created by the development because you can drive all the way through the contract. Well, that driveway has to meet visibility requirement under your section 6-230. It cannot be within 30 feet of an intersection. A private street, if that's what they're going to call this informal driveway, has to be 22 feet wide. And this isn't. The street access has to be safe for parking access and emergency vehicles. I look at this and you've got a garage, and you've got parking spaces behind the building. What's the distance between that 18-foot long car in that parking space and the building? And can you use the emergency vehicles in and out of there? We're dealing with a 6-unit multifamily structure. And if there is an emergency, they'll want access to the fire department and the UMP. And I question whether that meets the requirement for safe access for emergency vehicles and access to the parking area. The space behind the garage for the requirement of the second parking space simply is unworkable. Not only do they not have 12 spaces because they're required by law to have handicaps, they simply can't get cars in them. We learned tonight that the building height is 28 feet. The building height maximum in a planned unit development district is 35 feet. They don't require a variance in that. But you have another provision in your zoning ordinance called the complete streets policy in section 690(5). And that says parking lots must comply with that policy. And I haven't seen anything on this parking proposal that would make it compliant with the complete streets policy, which in effect, and that you're required to impose on any development. I also can't tell from the site plan on the front entrance of the building whether there is a small front porch. It does appear that way to me as a way to get in the front door. And if that's the case, it appears that that portion of the structure is located within that 5-foot setback for proposal. And if that's the case, the variance isn't for 5 feet from the front line, it's for 0 feet from the front line. I heard a mention of the word precedent. And I will tell you, I've heard that in zoning hearings for 50 years now. And there is no precedent. Other actions, whether they're zoning appeals or penalties. So the fact that there may be non-conforming uses or other variances granted within this area doesn't establish an precedent. So as you said clearly, you consider each property on its own merits along with the proposal and the merits of that proposal. There's another issue that we're dealing with here, and that is for site plan approvals, if there is a denial of that approval, as there has been in this case, which I ordered by Judge Palmer, this body can't, and the planning commission can't reconsider the approval of that plan under your ordinance for a period of 1 year from the date of denial. The denial by Judge Palmer was October 25 of 22. I question whether either the planning commission or this body can even entertain this petition, let alone act on it. Leave that up to your determination by reading Judge Palmer's order and then looking at that provision of your ordinance, that it says you can't do that. Again, if you don't require the element that you have to find present, it would really baffle me outside that you can stop building this size and all that good stuff. Everybody wants to say, oh gosh, it's so much better than what was there. Can't rebuild what was there. It's too late. If a non-conforming use is not rebuilt within 1 year, then the lot has to become conforming under your order. And this is not conforming under your order. That's why they're here asking for the variances they've requested and required to get even more variances than what they requested to put this in a planned unit development district. They simply haven't requested all of the ones that are required. If you were to take all of the requested setback variances and look at your ordinance and look at your findings, I think you'll find that this has a very significant negative effect. The petitioner wants you to think that, well, it's a wonderful effect in light of what used to be there. But what used to be there doesn't count for anything. It's what's there now, which is a vacant lot. And if it's rezoned to a planned unit development planning district, it's required to conform. And if they can't conform, they're required to go there. Now, we don't know why they want a planned unit development. If you go in the R2 district, the setback requirements aren't nearly as large in an R2. But they've created their own practical difficulty by saying we want to rezone this to a planned unit development. And to do that, we have to have all these variances, not only the ones they've requested, but the other ones have done. To do that. Well, who created that problem? The petitioner created that problem by wanting a planned unit development zone instead of an R2. I can't explain that, but it does, your ordinance does specifically state that the practical difficulty cannot be something created by the. Again, I'm asking that you pay particular attention to the details of this plan, because it doesn't request variances. The petitioner has not requested the variances that are necessary for it to be constructed, or the variances necessary for it to be approved by the planning commission as a secondary product. You all know that you each have to find each of those elements present before you can vote yes on the requested variance. But I would suggest to you at this point, even if you approve this, there is still not sufficient requests made for variances needed to construct the project. There are too many unrequested variances, all those ones that I listed, square footage, frontage, lot width. We haven't seen anything. So I would suggest, one, if there needs to be refiled, with the proper notice issue, so that the adjacent properties know what it is that's being requested. Or it simply needs to be denied. One, does that meet the requirements of the filing? Two, they have not applied for the sufficient variances required. Questions?
Most of the month. And we talked about it for the mile about the
The judge's order, if you read it, says the plan commission is ordered to deny it. I think that's a denial, whether it's a voluntary denial or one ordered by the court, it's still a denial.
I believe Mr. Clevenger at the last planning commission, they did that as more of a vacating. So recommendation is not a denial, it's a recommendation to the town.
That is precisely why I.
And we've never presented to BZA.
Yeah, this is our first initial
Right.
primary
And-
recommendation.
And then the other thing, I'm talking about, everything that again. Could be, yeah. But every non-conforming lot in Culver, if they're in their zoning, would require a variance for what somebody proposed.
I don't think there's any question about that. Non-conforming uses can't be modified unless to a conforming use.
But
So
you're
that's
also
why
saying-
we have a board of zoning appeals to hear those variance
You're
requests.
also saying that you have options. Require- And to see whether that's going to come the other way. Comprehensive plan. And there's a lot more that you could say that it make it big for you, it make it a.
Mr. Osborne, could you move that speaker that way? We have people online that are having
Yes.
troubles hearing. Yeah. Thank you.
Let me go back and, we had three people talking a second ago, and I don't like that at all. I'm gonna ask you to go ahead and repeat what you said back there.
My comment was, this is our first and initial presentation to the BZA. So we have not been denied by the BZA. No, but there's no one presenting here tonight. The judge's order, according to Mr. Clevenger, the planning commission, basically vacated the planning commission. They didn't approve or deny, recommend to the town council. Town council is not screwed. These people, planning commission. So they make a recommendation to the planning commission. The planning commission doesn't even need a favorable recommendation. I'm sorry. Town council does not need a favorable recommendation from the planning commission to approve changing from a C2 to a B. The planning commission gives the recommendation to do it or to not do it. The town council is the own body to cover the risk. The judge's orders, according to Mr. Clevenger, for vacating the planning commission recommendation. With the planning commission again, we're going back and forth. Couple of items. Back of the drive. Not need a variance to the back of the main building. Garage is the one that's going to be attempting that back. And he stated we created the hardship. I don't think we put in those 3 streets around this property. Create that hardship. I don't probably mean that. Very closely with the town, building inspector, building commissioner, for what variances were needed from this. And because our understanding, these are the variances that this body approved. And then when it goes back to the planning commission, they can approve the other variances for the actual project. So that the planning commission for PUD, that, and that was the understanding a year ago, that we just needed to go to the planning commission. So we have worked very closely with the town and which is the right step to take first, which variance we need both, which we sent everything to the acting building commissioner when we were applying for these variances. What exactly are needed for this project to become a community, and be approved for these variances. There are no front porches. I know there are no front porches. The very front of the building would be about 5 feet from the back of the sidewalk. There would be no decorative railing or anything. That would be.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I want to, I'm curious about the handicap parking. The fire, but I'm not with that, and I've got a single driveway with 2 cars.
This is a multifamily structure. As defined, it's got 6 units in one building. That is a multifamily structure, and as defined by the Americans with Disabilities, it requires a handicap parking space, at least one. And it's very possible with 6 units, it may require 2. But in this case, it's at least one. And your ordinance says developments must comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we simply require, and I want to go back, I want to read what Judge Palmer wrote in the. Therefore, the court orders the Culver Plan Commission's April 19, 2022 secondary approval of the flood plan submitted by the developer should be vacated, and the developer's application should be denied by the Culver Plan Commission. It's denied. Now, you can make your own determination on whether that 1 year limitation applies, but I'm suggesting to you that in this process, if the judge has ordered to be filed, this Plan Commission, BZA Plan Commission, I don't even think it was properly part of that. But you consult with your attorney on it. But what I'm saying is, all variances required from the flood district development standards must be approved by this. That's very clear in Judge Palmer's order. It's not, oh, we'll do 2 or 3 of them here, and then we'll go back to the Plan Commission and ask them to do the rest of it. Not the way it works. Not the way that order is written. Variances have to be approved here because you're the only body that can grant variance. But all I'm suggesting is it's not right to even approval. It's all the variances on before. And a new notice needs to go out in this committee. If it can even be considered by the Plan Commission for October.
I think you're forgetting the word pending that is in that statement that you have. Developer's application should be denied by the Culver Plan Commission pending consideration of any required variances by the zone. And I don't think you emphasize that word pending because it doesn't say that they have to, that's pending what we do. This is the state.
It's denied. And that denial has to remain in effect.
It said it should be denied pending consideration.
Okay, fine.
I think there's a big difference there.
I disagree. A denial is a
Well,
denial. But anyway,
I think you're wrong.
Okay. But either way you look at it, what's before you tonight is incomplete. All the variances required in the flood district are not before you.
I'm not arguing that point.
Okay.
I'm arguing what you said that the judge ordered.
Okay.
What the judge ordered was not required that they do it. It's pending what we do tonight.
That's fine. Well,
And that's a technicality, but I think that's a very fine technicality.
and I'll give you that. If you want to hear it on that basis, I may not agree with your interpretation. Fine, I understand.
So that word pending doesn't mean anything?
As far as I'm concerned, the denial ends it. And the pending word means it has to come to you before it can go to the Plan Commission for secondary.
That's not what it says, but
Do that as it may. The issues tonight are, can you say yes to all 3 of those findings of fact? And even if you do, are those all the variances required?
I would say good. So, sorry for them, that's so, if the part of the variance is required, it would come back to the Plan Commission. And then the Plan Commission follows for those that are variances that would need to be applied for. Then the Plan Commission would send it back. They do the rest. Under everything that was in here, we're not trying to approve or disapprove of the PUD. I want to make that clear because it seems like we've gone over a whole lot of planning and everything else. But this variance tonight, the variance will be accepted to the board. If it would be approved before it.
All I'm suggesting is I listed off all of the other things that would comply with the PUD zoning district. And they haven't requested the variances.
True, but they haven't, they'll have to resubmit their primary plan. So none of those are ready.
Primary plan.
The task before us is just to determine whether or not these variances be acceptable for PUD if it were to be used. Not talking about any plans.
Right, and I think the other option is if they need to get more variances,
That's what I'm saying. It's gonna come back from the plan and get back to the BZA. But
Well,
they will go
and the
first.
other option is they can table it, re-advertise it, and list 5 more variances
Exactly.
if you wanted to do them all at one time.
Okay. That's what I'm. That's option that they have.
Yeah, what I'm suggesting is they can't build the project, which all those plans without additional.
You need to go back to the plan commission. This is what you're done.
Other comments?
No, it's.
Jeff, can you make sure to get kind of close to the speaker?
Sure.
I had trouble hearing you at the last meeting, so I want to make sure you're.
That's surprising. Okay, so there's been a lot of discussion tonight.
Excuse me, you are?
Jeff Mansfield, 222. So there's been a lot of discussion tonight about this feasibility triangle. What I've presented here, I have here is taken the site plan that was presented as part of the package from Mirar. I've overlaid on that a couple of different things. If you look at the blue triangle conforms to the site plan based on the right-of-way setback as defined in the zoning code. And if you look on the next page, says this triangular vehicle's visual setback is measured along the right-of-way lines. So that's that one. You look at the next one. The red, so the red setback is the one based on the zoning code. The blue one is if you took that same 50-foot setback and you applied it basically to the curb. I was interested in seeing what that one does. And then the green is the NDOT standards based on the NDOT standards. And the NDOT standards are attached. What has been presented is not in line with, by the developer, not in line with what's listed here, in that they are talking about the measurement being taken basically from the midpoint of the lane of traffic. The other interesting thing is, yes, 20 miles per hour speed limit. I would venture to guess that most people are not doing 20. They're probably doing 25, potentially 30. And I realize that's against the law. But if you look at the speed, the distance measurements from 20 is 75, 25 is 110, 30 it's 145. So it keeps increasing. So bottom line is, one of your criteria is safety. It can't present a safety problem. The setbacks put the building in pretty much every one of these site triangles. That is a safety concern. And because of that, I don't know how you could vote yes on that one specific issue. All right. Yes. I'm done with site triangles. So if you have questions, I do have another comment, but okay. So I also included some pictures from the last that I presented previously to the Plan Commission, and the commission, there was a comment made, oh, you can see all the way down to the theater, I believe it was. If you look, I took in those pictures, I photoshopped in, for lack of better terms, where that proposed building will sit. And you can see, yeah, you can see down to the theater if you're out, almost out into the street with your car. If you're at the sidewalk, you can only see maybe 75 feet down, 80 feet down. Again, this goes to, this is a safety issue. You cannot approve these variations because they are creating a safety issue. Okay, then finally, you look at the last page. I keep hearing about, oh, the hardship of 3 roads. You can't build anything because of 3 roads. So I took the existing R2, let's call a spade a spade. They're building R2, okay? They're building a multifamily. If you take the R2 zoning requirements, you can see in the blue area, there is a substantial building path available. So they are creating this hardship by the building that they want to build, not by having 3 roads. In fact, the red square, I approximated the size of the issue condominiums. I mean, I told you, build the issue condominiums on that lot. They have 6 units. So the whole hardship conversation about it's a hardship, they can't use the lot because of the 3 roads, that does not hold water, and you cannot, I don't see how you can approve this, approve the last, that this is not based on a hardship that they have introduced. You can build on that lot. Questions?
Questions from the board? Comments?
I have none.
Anybody else?
We just like to respond to comments regarding set line triangle and safety. I understand the concerns of being Culver for consideration because we'll not be following the exact laws of the town. If we allow that, if we start straight down that road, we're going to start requiring for designing for 50 miles an hour going through downtown. If we start to our concern of designing for something that is against the law, essentially.
Go ahead. Are you finished?
No, along with that, regarding sight line distances, basically where the actual sight line distances are. Again, we have the issue of consistency within the county Culver's ordinances, and so that's the reason we are looking for a variance on those sight line distances to allow for to alleviate those inconsistencies and to provide for more creative use of these.
Mr. Manfield, you had Mansfield.
Well, if you look at what I presented, you'll see that most every one of those triangles, the building proves into. So doesn't matter. Yes, I understand you're asking for it, but you're creating a potential safety issue with that corner. And if you follow what is in the ordinance, which I believe there's a section in the zoning code that says variation, and there's 3 parentheses in the zoning code, was a development standard area, usurps, for lack of better terms, the other areas of the zoning code. And the page that I presented to you from the zoning code, that is in the development standard area. So in what, in my opinion, that's the precedent, and that's what we should be using. And yeah, I mean, you can develop, you can provide a variation, but just look at the degree of variation that you're providing. If you look at what is specified in the zoning code, in the development standard area.
Couple notes there on, that is why we are asking for the site line situation there. I'm not so sure if the Mansfield Photoshop skills are exactly what would qualify as being exact measurements, but there are, in your photo book, there are many, many corners in town with much less of a site line, and as far as I'm aware of, you don't have a safety issue with any of those areas, including the fire station. You're flying in and out of there, but cars going in way faster than the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit and a lot less cycling. As far as his comment about we could build the beach view condos there, we could do something like that, but it negates the in and out in that property, which is what the neighbors initially complained on, the traffic that would be going down Coolidge to Washington and back up to Lakeview. So unless there is an in and out and ingress on the property, we're recreating that traffic problem that they complained about in the initial proposal. So the parking is all designed to take care of that. The beach view kind of buildings, the depth of those would not allow for the drive to come out onto the street.
What is the total square footage? I'm sorry, the total square footage of that?
0.3.
There's a lot of stuff. It is mentioned here.
So it's 20,000.
It's on that last page. It's 18.
That's 20.
The lot area is 1,500, 526. The last page with the blue building area, last comment there.
Okay, other comments? Yes.
Farmer 225 Lakeview. So.
Did you get that?
No, I did not.
Doug Farmer 225 Lakeview. So just very briefly. So I appreciate the interest to kind of downplay the importance of the variance on sideline, but really what you're doing is downplaying the variance on safety. And I guess that this body will decide what the tolerance level is for that. The other thing is a question to the builder, and there was a statement made earlier that the surrounding properties, the value would be benefited. I guess I'd be interested to see the study that you guys conducted. It may not that you, maybe that you can't validate that our property value will go up, but can you validate that they won't go down? So yeah, our study will support that.
No, just looking at the sales of other townhome properties and what have happened with the homes in that area. You look, one of the beach properties just listed for 450,000. Much smaller condominium townhome than this would be. And all that's done is raise all of my property value's gone up. I'm sure yours has, pretty much everybody in that area. We do know that one of the harbor condominiums there sold for over $1 million. Those are the 3-story townhomes that are at the end of this street that have, the parking is right there on the street. Talk about traffic issues, those are some traffic issues down there, and that is why we try to keep the traffic up closer to Lakeshore Drive.
So I would argue that everybody's property value went up as a product of COVID in the last couple of years. I don't dispute that. The real question is, you made a statement that our property values would go up.
We would think that they would.
Can you validate that they won't go down? That's our concern is residents in the neighborhood. Can you validate with us that our property value won't be negatively impacted? So
I own
I'm
a
asking.
home one less than a block from there.
I know, but you're the builder.
I don't want my property value to go
I
down.
understand, but you're the builder.
Right, but I still don't want my property value on my home to go down either.
So the answer is no.
I'm not gonna do anything that's gonna.
Okay, let's not get into an argument here.
You may want to open, also, there might be people online.
Sure.
Someone had their hand up online and then took it off. So I don't know if there's someone
I'll come back
online.
to.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions, comments? Anybody online that would like to say something or have a question?
Go ahead, Bob Guest. Unmute yourself.
Yep, this is Bob Dervick, 230 Lakeview Street.
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay. Ginny, I just wanted to reach out to make sure that I emailed with you earlier today about a letter that we wrote from 16 residents in the immediate area that were within the 300 feet or so opposing this development.
I do have all the letters with me, Bob. They've all been passed to BZA, but normally I read them after the input is done. So I have a stack of them with me, including Mr. Snyder's memo that went to the Plan Commission. And a lot of the letters that went to the Plan Commission were addressed to BZA, Plan Commission, and Town Council. So I've got all of them.
Okay, just as long as you read it. Perfect. Thank you, Ginny.
Everything electronically, I just have hard copy with me too.
Okay, great. So our property is the one on the site plan. It you know, there's a lot of issues that we see with this, but being so close to it, I'm not going to take a lot of time. I just want to go through a few of them. And the main one is the street that is being created from this parking lot from Coolidge to Lakeview Street is 5 feet from our house. There's also a side yard that is what becomes non-usable for my son to play in, and quite honestly dangerous, right? You got cars driving through, and you know, it's only there's very little buffer or green space between them, and I think the road is unnecessary and it's just not needed. I also just wanted to say, with 6 units on 1/3 of an acre, not only the amount of noise from this road going by with golf carts and but the residents as well, right? 6 units in 1/3 of an acre, it's a lot. That's a lot for our small little ranch home to be overshadowed. Also, our sight lines will be blocked. You know, we won't be able to see Lakeshore Drive anymore. And I just thought that it should be more consistent setbacks, which is what is in the regular area of all the other houses that surround it on all 4 sides, which is R1 single families zoning. If you have any questions, I would be more than happy to take them. But again, I do think putting this road in and building along my property line and along the road's property line absolutely devalues our property and makes our houses hard to sell. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Comments?
Yes.
There are photos of the area that Bob's talking about. When he talks about his side yard, the eaves of his house actually hang over the property line, and there was a fence right along there. He had a fence this far from his bedroom window, with a dumpster right outside that bedroom window. What we're proposing is 5 more feet of green space in there. We're happy to put a fence up on it's not a road, it's actually just the exit of the parking lot area. And there was a parking lot there right next to it, and we can kind of exit going on under Lakeview. So whether it be, and we talked to the Planning Commission and the Town Council, would they like landscape kind of berm along there, a fence for security purposes, whatever they deem, but there will be more green space than they previously had.
Anybody else online that would like to speak?
I don't see anyone else unmuting or putting the command motion. Oh, there is one home, yeah. Susie Northrup?
Yes,
Go ahead.
hi, this is Susan. Yep, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Susie Northrup at 404 East Lakeshore. I'm directly across the street from the property. I don't know a Lake Fest or a concert in the park, but the road in front of our house is extraordinarily overrun with traffic and parking and walkers and dogs and kids. And I love it. And I know all my neighbors because they stop when we're sitting out on the porch and say hello on their way to the market. But like Bob mentioned, 24 potential residents in a third of an acre that you're adding to that stressed area already just seems excessive. It doesn't fit what I feel like I live in, which is a residential neighborhood. And we all have nice homes and porches and a friendly community. And there's no outdoor space to get to know these people. I just don't feel like this is for the purpose of adding to the community. I feel like it may four walls that are Airbnb type of rent. Interested in this property. My parents and my in-laws are elderly, and I cannot imagine elderly people wanting to live in a home without ramps or handicap parking or elevators and so many stairs. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But even if one elderly person lives there, I'm sure they will have visitors. I'm sure they'll have family staying with them. So that's 24 potential people. That's 20 to some cars. It's just too much. I feel like they're jamming way too much in. I have kids. We all have kids. We all look out for each other's kids. And it's a slow roll area. It needs to be a slow roll area. And I just fear for the safety of our community, as well as everything else that I already mentioned. But I also want to know, and I want you to think about, what precedent does this set for variances in the future for all of us? This is an excessive amount of variances being requested, as I'm learning more tonight, just hearing from Steve, the lawyer. What does that mean for the rest of what kind of precedent is this setting for the future? Thank you for hearing me out.
We lost you for a minute there, and I didn't hear your question. Could you please repeat that?
Sure. I'm wondering what precedent this sets for variance requests in the future. This is an excessive amount of variance requests, and I am learning even more about these variants that are being requested from Steve's presentation tonight. You know, not just setbacks, front, back, side, visibility, sightlines, everything, the square footage, lack of handicap. There's so many variances being requested. I just wonder if it's approved. What precedent does that set for the future of Culver and others asking for variances? Thank you for listening.
As far as the Board of Zoning Appeals go, there is no precedent. We look at everyone separately that comes in. We do not try to say, well, because we did it for so-and-so, we've got to do it for this. We look at each case separately. I have done that for years. This is a completely different case.
There's another hand up online. Mike's Guest is the name.
Hi, Jenny. This is,
Okay.
I'm sorry. This is Mike Stallings, 506 East Lakeshore Drive. And before I make my comment, I want you to know that I obviously associated with Mirar Custom Homes. To the lady who just talked, who just spoke, her house is taller than these things we're going to build or that we want to build. The the Dereviks, if you want to argue about lot sizes, live on a lot that's way too small, that under current conditions would not be considered buildable. And yet it's been fine for them for whatever, 10 or 12 years. A third thing is that I was at the hearing with Judge Palmer, and Judge Palmer told everyone that he was only there to consider the fact that the town ordinance did not adhere to the state statutes by having a BZA hearing. A lot of the other stuff that's Mr. Snyder brought out is stuff that Judge Palmer didn't even want to consider. In fact, said he didn't not want to consider it. So these are people who are aggravated, and they hire an attorney who is putting together a bunch of stuff that really is not part of this decision that should be made. The decision has to deal with setbacks and what kind of an issue there is with setbacks as far as visibility. There was a comment by one of the Plan Commission members, as Sarah may have mentioned earlier, that if you stop at the stop sign, you can see down the street. I don't think Mr. Mansfield is an engineer by any stretch of the imagination, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have an engineer there tonight who can attest to these things. And part of your conversation was in and out, so the reception is not real good. But the point is, there still is issues to be put back to the Plan Commission, who considers the zoning. The BZA is considering setbacks, and I think you should adhere to setbacks that are either approved or disapproved based on what the Plan Commission has to say at their meeting when that comes up in February. There's a lot of stuff being thrown out there that to me is not true. The last time that Mr. Snyder spoke, he said his wife would never want to park in a garage. Mr. Snyder doesn't even live near Culver. He lives over in Syracuse. So he's making comments that are designed to get you guys all excited and to make you believe that these are all problems. And I think you and or the Plan Commission can make changes to your zoning ordinances or your zoning based on what you feel needs to be you need to do. If you couldn't make any changes to these type of things, there's no reason for a BZA. And yet you come together once a month and you hear these issues constantly. You heard an issue tonight that had them have some changes to it. Those changes that were made are totally different than your zoning ordinances. But you must remember that Culver is in an old town. It's not large lots. Ideally, if you had lots the sizes of what the current zoning ordinances say, there wouldn't be an issue. But you have to make a decision on practically every lot that occurs in the old part of town. You've done that recently, by the way. You did it on State Street with that large blue house. You just did it next to the fire department, where you made changes to the ordinances, principally because these lots are too small. They don't meet current building standards. So I would urge you to really consider that in dealing with some of this, and throw some of what I feel is rhetoric out, because I think there was a lot of rhetoric thrown out there tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Farmer.
So I just want to go on record as being offended. Quite frankly, just because he disagrees with how we perceive the facts and the details to be, does not make us untruthful. He has a history, and using words like rhetoric and not true. He has a history of insulting the neighbors because we have a differing opinion on what should be done with that property. That doesn't make us bad. That doesn't make us evil. That makes us concerned citizens. And I would believe that in the very best interest of the town council and the BZA, that you want informed citizens. You want citizens that are going to voice their concerns. That's what this doesn't make us liars, doesn't make us bad people, and I'm offended by that for the second time.
Well, and I appreciate that. But again, we don't want to get into personalities here. There are going to be two different opinions. People will be offended by something said. I can't stop that. But I'm here on the board and I've got to try to keep it under control, where we don't have fights. We can't have that. And yes, differences of opinions are going to be taken very personally at times, but they are differences of opinions. Questions? Comments?
I have a question.
Okay.
This lot size is accurate, that it's 15,526 feet. Do we have the legal ability to approve a variance for something that doesn't meet the minimum square foot standard? And our minimum standard is 21,780 square feet for a PUD. On page 55.
Does everybody understand the question he's asking?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No.
So according to our zoning, to apply for a PUD requires a minimum square feet of 28,780. This lot size, according to the information that I have in front of me, is about 6,000 square feet short of that. So do we have the legal ability to approve or disapprove a variance for something that doesn't meet the minimum standard?
It's still a lot of record. And how long has that lot been there? For the ordinance was set up for the minimum size of the PUD. You know, we've got two different things to look at.
I guess I didn't think to question the size for a variance like Mr. Snyder has suggested, because the setbacks that were requested make it even a smaller size. So I don't know if they need a separate variance or not. If they did, we would have to republish that because we didn't publish that as a variance. So it'd say if you were requiring that variance or any other ones, then you would have them come back for that set of variances. If that's if you see that as an issue.
It's just a question.
Yeah, because we didn't publish that particular one out and you think it needs to be done, they would have to come back for that as a separate.
We did ask for that before we applied for this. We did inquire.
Yeah, and my thought was you've got all these setbacks making that where that building is going to go, it's going to make that parcel smaller. It's already smaller than the PUD. You have to get it rezoned still. So I honestly don't know.
Questionable, yeah.
Should we get counsel on that? Should we table this?
I don't see any other way, and I agree with you. I think we need to get this determined, and not that I want to delay it, but I don't feel prepared to make a decision tonight on different things. And truthfully, I will make the statement that I tried to stay out of this whole thing. As a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals, I didn't feel that it was my job to get on the Plan Commission. Even though we have Plan Commission, I feel like we're a completely separate entity and that we should not always get involved with that. We should sit back and look at it. I have not been involved with this from the very beginning.
Right.
For a reason. I'm not ready to make any kind of decision.
Not either. And if you're done, I'd add to that. Because under the circumstances, what this is, I mean, other than with Judge Palmer's ruling, we have never had to come before for PUDs because it's actually what it is, planned unit development. Now with what you brought up about the size of the lot, I'm glad you brought that up. I missed it. And that alone makes me a little skeptical as far as moving ahead right now. And to what your concerns were, as far as the planning commission and that, they're not usually involved under a PUD. And under the judge's ruling is the reason we are now. But at the same time, I think that a lot of people, and I appreciate everything, you said the right words, you know, that we do want to hear your concerns. And, but the concerns that you have that you're bringing before here, and I know if it's pertaining to the variances that are applied for, then I'm 100% to hear them here. And I'm 100% to hear them at the planning commission. Because a lot of times we have got just a little bit off basis. We went back to the development, not the variance. Because planning commission, just like President stated, he didn't really want to be involved in it because it is a planning commission issue. But at the same time, it is a planning commission issue from a lot of things that we've been discussing back and forth for why it should be developed, why it, you know, it's unsightly or whatever. It's not even as far as your purpose of bringing this because you don't like it. That's your purpose. And that's fine. That shouldn't even be a matter of our decision why you bring it to it. But we want to hear it. But if we stayed with the variances, we probably would have known that we missed these few before this as well. But I thank you for being here.
Just as a point of record, when we were applying for this, we did inquire about the lot size. And we were advised that it didn't need to be put out there. So we didn't do it.
Oh.
And I think Mr. Snyder articulated quite a few other variants requests.
Right. And he did.
Not just the square footage.
Right. And we heard that. Yes.
This has already been through some legal, I just want to make sure that we are making an informed decision before we make a decision.
I'd like clarity on the rear yard setback because we didn't publish it as a rear yard setback for the structure. It was just a rear yard setback because the site plan shows the garage where that rear yard setback would occur. I don't know where there's a difference there.
There's not.
Or if it has to be stated as a rear yard setback to accommodate building an accessory structure. Does it matter if it's still a rear yard setback, correct?
It's just a request for your yard setback to be less than what the ordinance calls for. Basically, that's all it is.
My name is Paul DeBenedictis. I live at 424 Forest. Do not live within 300 feet of this situation. I'm just a Culver citizen, and I want to just say two things. First, Dan, I appreciate your methodical approach through this because this is a highly contentious and emotional issue. Second is the previous president of the town council said there were 20 steps that an entity goes through in development. It feels like this is being figured out on the moment, on the spot, each meeting I go to. It shakes my confidence in that there's a process. It feels less than transparent. And if I was a resident, if I was developing this, if I was building this, I would feel very frustrated and feel like I had low confidence in how this goes forward. So this is just an observation. And I suspect many people have a similar observation that for your next steps forward, no matter where it is, it should be transparent. There should be something published out there. It should be available for people to see and understand. Because I couldn't tell anyone what happened here. I can tell you that more things came up. People threw bluebirds here and there, a grenade, and it got stalled. So that's just an outside observation of what's going on.
Let me just add something to that real quick. My name is Lee Marshall, and I live at 4244.
I'm sorry, where do you live?
4244 Forest Place. Maybe this is just, my career was in New York, and I was always putting together very complex deals and having, 8 people in a room screaming at each other. when this sort of first started, and Jeff Mansfield can testify to this, I was on the phone and spent probably 10, 12 hours with Jeff and Mike Stallings, trying to get everybody to talk to each other. But I was kind of late to the game and everybody had lawyered up, so it didn't really go anywhere. But I'm the type of person that if I'm structuring something that's complex, all the complexity comes first. And you deal with that back and forth and figuring those things out before it ever gets to the point where you're trying to start to execute. And so I'm just emphasizing the point that Paul made, that it feels like it's in reverse, that there are all these things that keep coming up every time, rather than sitting down and figuring out the complexities in one fell swoop, and maybe doing it in conjunction with the neighborhood that's being affected by it. Because this town has a history, and I would say even or you can say it's a policy of not sharing development information. It just comes when it's hitting planning commission or whatever, and people tend to be ambushed by it. And I just think that, there's a possibility it could be worked out if, rather than always inviting ourselves to be sued over these kinds of development projects, because now I guess we're being sued over the dunes thing too, that we try to figure them out before it gets this far.
I'll comment a little bit on that, because what we're actually doing is when problems come up that we see, we are taking that extra step, which is holding everything back. And you say you're going backwards, but we can't move forward as much until we do get that complexity solved.
Right.
And that's what we gotta do. We've got several people involved.
Right.
And we're not always getting the people to bring it until we actually have a meeting.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. It would be nice if it could be done a little bit differently, maybe before it even starts through the process.
And I mean, I wish there was a way we could have a public hearing at the Cafe Max or whatever, and we could all sit down and talk about it, but it doesn't work that way. I mean, we can't talk to you in our official capacity with all of us together here at a meeting, and that's when we find out a lot of this, one side to the other. But I don't like the offensive remarks back and forth. That's completely not necessary in this meeting. And it doesn't either encourage the members here to vote one way or the other. It has nothing to do with what we got to look at the facts. And I'm going to say right now, we look at the facts we have before you. And while I'm talking, I'd like to ask you, would it be possible that I can get a copy of all these ordinances that you're coming up as part of variances, that I can find them in there?
The sections of your zoning ordinance, they're all in the development standards under the PUD, but I'll send Jenny a list of them.
I've read it over and over, and some of these are a little bit different what I've read.
And Barry, I just wanted to make the point, I actually didn't want it to be something that was in an official capacity, that it could be people who are trying to work this out, meaning the neighborhood and the builder work together and then finally figure it out and come and have it be an official capacity.
But to be transparent here, we can't come as a board and talk to everybody.
The question was raised, are we willing to do that? Yes, we tried to broker a discussion between us and the group that had sued, and with Mike and Mirar. And the discussion that the group had was, we are willing to do that as long as our attorney can be present in that discussion. And the feedback that we got back was that was not acceptable. But we are willing to have that conversation as long as our attorney can be present with them in that discussion. At least we were. I'd have to go back and poll the group again, but that was.
When the comment was made, everybody lawyered up. We didn't lawyer up. We came to the first meeting, we got ambushed by an attorney and a group of people. So we didn't.
We shouldn't use words like ambush. That's unfair to us.
Okay, we're kind of getting off the position that our job here tonight. I'm going to make one comment, and I probably shouldn't make this comment. I've heard property values being harmed because of it. I don't think the property values in Culver are going to be harmed any place in town with the way things are going right now. I mean, I'm seeing property going for 5 times what it was 10 years ago. To me, that's not much of a worry. In fact, it's to the point where as a school teacher coming to Culver, I couldn't live here. And I loved living here for 50 years, but I couldn't live here anymore because of the values. I think that's a moot point. And also want to just remind everybody that we are all volunteers. None of us get paid a cent for being on these committees. So be patient. And we're trying to do the best for the town. Yes.
I just have one concern going forward. Obviously, this is going to be taken, but we know that Jenny Monroe is leaving in February, and we've been doing this for a year, trying to get answers of the procedures, the process, exactly. But I mean, we asked for every detail that we needed to present tonight, and that's what we were given. So I have some real concerns in a month. What's going to happen if there's not even her to ask the questions? I mean, even when we come to these, there's more questions that come up. We were told BZA first, then Plan Commission this time, and then it turned into TRC twice, then Plan Commission, then BZA, then Plan Commission, then Town Council. So every time it's changing, and I have concerns of how that's going to be remedied, how just a procedure, not necessarily what's happening with this.
I will speak just on about Jenny. She's a lifelong resident of Culver too. And she's not going to ignore her love for this town and what happens here, hopefully. But I think she's willing to keep working if she needs to get things finished. Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I have told the council that I will wait till they hire because I don't want to drop the ball. We also don't have a building commissioner in place. We have approval from the town council to hire that position because obviously we need that to be a separate role and a separate duty and somebody with that expertise. And we're advertising that as a planning person and building commissioner because we would like to draw from a larger pool of applicants with a skill set that can handle that. And the council has agreed to hire a consultant to replace me, but I don't want to just drop all the balls that we have going with broadband coming, with our NDOT projects, our Okra project. We have a lot of balls in the air right now. So my plan is to publish notifications for whatever meetings we have, and we do have more Plan Commission cases, BZA cases on the docket. And then once we have someone in place that we are comfortable with, I will stay until that happens, as long as the council is proving that they're making an effort to hire both those positions. I don't want to leave it to a volunteer to have to cover it. And we have few resources as it is in terms of staffing. So I don't want it to land on the clerk's desk or the deputy clerk. They don't have that kind of capacity. So we'll move forward with whatever cases we have. And if we have to republish a case, so be it. And that'll be, if you all direct me to consult with the attorney on the list of variances that we might need to add to that public notice, we will do that. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on variances or Plan Commission rezoning. I'm doing the best I can to interpret it as it stands in our statements. So
I think we need a motion to table this.
Did you want the letters read in if you're tabling it? Can we, since I sent these to you electronically, can we have you accept that you've read these letters? Because some of these are in support of these variances, some of them are not in support of these variances. Mr. Derovic referenced the letter that they sent. There's several other letters that you've received. This is the hard copy. Could we at least agree that they go into the minutes as a copy? Otherwise, I could sit here and read them all.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, it should be written in the minutes, I think, as well, that these letters were.
Okay,
And
And then you can send those out to us.
yes,
you have them.
We have more.
Well,
You know, I may have to get the
I'll
electronic
make a
versions.
motion.
I don't know if I saved them. I think I
I
may
can
have.
resend them if you need them.
it's been moved and properly seconded that we table this until the February meeting.
Could you repeat who made the motions?
Mr. McManaway and Mr. Osmond.
Oh, cool. Hold on.
Any further discussion?
Who seconded?
Mr. Osmond.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Much I appreciate it, I come here, bringing information, and they see it their way, and we'll look it over.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Okay,
Judy, what would that hearing date be?
Hold on, let me look. If it is
16.
February, I believe, yeah, it's always the third Thursday.
Yeah, February 16th.
Planning Commission's always the third Tuesday, BZA is always the third Thursday. That's standing for the year.
That'd be second day after Valentine's Day, if I come along. Yeah.
See if I need a quick break.
Good.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is petition 2023B100698. And this is one filed by Jason Cackley.
I know, that's what I was just waiting to figure out. I just made a quick drawing just so that everybody's clear, and I only made 5 copies.
I gave them also.
Well, I did this one today, but
Okay.
I mean, it's, rather than sketching on the GIS screen, I just figured this would be
Sure.
easier.
They've also got what you filed with your application attached to their packet.
I don't have any of those, I only have 5 copies. My name is Jason Cackley. I own a vacant lot on the corner of Obispo and Prado. There is no street number assigned at this point. I'm looking to build a house. So the reason I'm here for the variance is that there's a 25-foot setback on both the Obispo side and the Prado side. So the house will face south. So I'm just requesting a variance to reduce the 25-foot front yard variance to 12 feet so that I can accommodate like porch, everything you can see there. So, and that's pretty much it.
So, and except for the porch is 25 feet at that point, or is, how wide is the porch?
Porch is,
Okay, now I get,
what is it, 25 feet, I think? I have,
So we required to do 25 feet from both streets.
yes.
Right.
So it wouldn't be,
so the entire, so the issue, and this is what I brought up to Jenny yesterday. So the way the variant or the front yard setback being 25 feet means that it only leaves me 25 feet of buildable space. So the entire footprint of the home is 30 feet. But I guess it was my understanding that in requesting the variance to be 12 feet, that covered the rest of the structure. So maybe I'm wrong, but
no, and that's fine. I was just wondering where, because
yeah,
the
because
porch
I actually
sticks out
did.
further and I didn't know how far.
Yeah, and I got actually, this shows current, like,
So this is the porch right here.
just, yeah, just.
That's
this
what
right
you
here.
want to do is this porch right here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've got, I don't know if they were included, I've got prints of the, you know, what the house is gonna look like.
It would be these.
Yes.
Porch is 35 feet wide, 8.8 feet. deep.
So the wall would be about 20 feet. But that, it's the 12 feet will take care of it.
Oh, okay.
And I've got one copy.
Oh, okay.
I didn't make five.
How tall is this house?
It's like 25, just shy of 26 to the peak of the roof.
That's a house. Was that to the right side of the picture? What is that structure that looks like it's right on the property line? Is that a shed?
Are you looking at this one?
I'm looking at this right here.
Yeah, that's I believe that's a shed for, I think this guy owns both properties.
And that house is further over then?
Yeah, so this is the small square, that's the house. So it's offset towards Nueva Gorda. And then you've got an alley in between.
Right, okay.
And then there's a small garage. So the property directly to the north, there's a small garage and it's only less than 5 feet from the property line. Yeah, I mean, the way I have everything drawn up, everything meets the rest of the offset of the setbacks, just not.
You're actually back to 10 foot.
Yep.
Backside.
And there's actually plenty of room east to west, like that, it's not really an issue.
Which you're already getting 25 on.
This is the west view.
That's looking at the house, yeah, from Obispo looking east.
So this is the only thing I'm questioning. There's going to be a second floor above that porch. Is that correct?
Not above the porch. Really, the peak of the porch, there's nothing, like it's gonna go all the way up to the wrap, like there's nothing enclosed on the porch. So it's basically a 30 by 60 footprint with a single peak that runs from east to west. And then the porch just comes out, you know, for the aesthetic.
On the storage room, whatever, you know, use it at a later date, whatever. That's what people do.
What's that?
Space up there above the porch.
Oh, I don't know. I won't, I don't have any plans. There's no way to access. It won't be enclosed.
I mean,
No.
There's a garage on the east end of the house.
Yeah, and then, so there is a second floor, it's basically a big loft, there's a single bedroom upstairs and a bathroom.
So, and this is what I'm looking at, so this will be above the porch.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, that's just decorative.
But that's just
timber.
decorative.
Yep.
Okay. as far as I'm concerned, and I'll just add this, I think you've done a nice job of trying to utilize that, ask for a minimum, minimal amount of variance there. And it is a difficult lot because it's got two front yards, basically.
Right.
And I think it's the devil. I don't think you're trying to do too much on a small lot at all.
No, I forget what, I ran that ratio of what it was. I think it's like 40%, but don't quote me on that. I mean, it wasn't
close to the 50%.
No.
Okay.
Well, basically, yeah, you got a 60 by 120 and a 30 by 60 with an extra 10 foot. So yeah.
Questions?
I've got one.
Yes.
I mean, right now, you're asking for a 12-foot setback, but the house is actually at what?
Well,
20 feet?
So the
wall is at 20.
The wall is at 20 feet. So
Well, there's going to
But it's 12 feet will take care of it. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, do we want to have a full 12-foot variance allowed? I mean, if it's just for the porch would be, I'd want that defined for just the length of the porch. But I know the house is existing now. I mean, once you build it, and it's gonna be only 20 feet setback for the house as well. Where the house is coming past the setback as well.
So you're saying right at like.
Right,
it's 20 feet, instead of 25, instead of 25.
You know, it says 25, but you don't want the 25-foot setback being
It's in the house.
in the house. Right. He's asking for 12 foot for the porch, but he's actually asking
Or more.
than just the porch. The footprint's gonna be a footprint after, you know.
Well, I think we could say according to the drawing or according to the plans.
Yeah, and that's all I'm asking for. Yeah.
Because I don't think we want to get into 25 feet here, 20 feet there, 20.
Yeah, Jason had that question for me and I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's
it's
what-
just a front yard setback. Do we say on this part of the yard, it's 18 and on it's.
Right, when you go with 12 feet though, I mean, it also allows, if he wants to do something within that other feet on the front, he can do whatever he wants to, because he's already allowed that just 12-foot setback on the full length of the house.
Right, I think you would have to, if you approve it per the site plan
For the site
submitted
plan.
Exactly.
as
Exactly.
part of the application, because it's,
I want that specified. Though,
yeah, Yeah.
We just put that in approval.
you can't just decide to bring the house up to the porch.
You know what I'm
Because it's-
saying?
Right,
You know,
and there's a garage,
You're showing, but you're just asking for the porch, but you're not asking for the house and the porch, you know, to be over the 25.
yeah, well, I just thought basically the worst of the two with the 12, and then that would cover the rest of it.
Right.
And that's when I called her yesterday, because once I thought about it, I'm like, well, maybe I'm assuming something that,
Because usually when you write it, there's already a structure and you're putting a setback for an
Right.
additional
You're
piece.
just adding additional piece.
Yeah.
Now you're putting the whole structure
Right.
over.
Right. I mean, it's over specified as a site.
And like, and that's what I say, as long as it's specified that. that's
Per
what-
site.
Per site.
Yeah, if he had submitted drawings and everything, how would you establish
Well,
exactly
yeah.
where that line is?
I mean, knowing that the house is being built, which has always helped us and has hurt us by not knowing. But by knowing this right now, which is pride, I mean, it makes it a lot easier. We got this.
well, there's three large, I don't know if they're all walnut trees, at least two of them are, like right along the road. So technically not in our lot, but in the eastway there. And I don't want to, I want to leave everything there. I don't want to cut anything down.
Right.
And I don't want to be too close to them either, so.
Are you gonna have to put sidewalks in?
I don't know. There's a sidewalk along Obispo, but there's nothing on the product side.
New construction.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to
Okay.
put a sidewalk in.
Is there sidewalk already on both sides of that?
No, there's a house. Yeah, only on that side. But no, you're talking here. Oh, you're talking
I'm
here.
talking right in front of
I don't
How
believe
far would that
Ocado,
sidewalk
Obispo
have to
may
go?
have a beat up looking one, but
it. Yeah,
Shoot.
and the only reason I
Building
brought that up
commissioner
is
will
a lot
give
of
you
times the provision of the
Yeah.
sidewalk is,
Would I have to go, like, how far would that sidewalk? Because I know the property across the alley older home existing, there's no sidewalk, so does it go to the alley?
So they do construction has to be probably to your property line.
Okay.
I think it's what the,
Well, you could come in for a TRC meeting to go over the site plan and we can do it then.
I know in the past, they have.
And we have a sidewalk program as well where you can apply to get funding toward that sidewalk. That program was developed because of this requirement. I believe Russ used to offer if the homeowner didn't want to put in a sidewalk because if the neighboring property doesn't have one, you can sign an affidavit saying, I don't want to put one in, but if the neighboring property does, then you have to. So I'll go over that with
Builder,
you.
the homeowner, whatever, has to have an agreement saying that when those are put in, you'll put yours in as well.
So we need to look at what's next
I know
year.
that was done, but that was then. And I don't know, we
Well,
have to do that.
the program used to require it, and then people were complaining that, well, the neighbor on this side doesn't have a sidewalk, and why not? And I'm gonna have this floating sidewalk. So then they came up with the policy that if the surrounding neighbors don't have it and you don't want to put it in, if one or the other does, then you have to put it in. But I had to sign an affidavit for my property back in the day when they changed that.
Okay.
So I'll get with you on that. We'll look at both sides of you.
Okay.
According to the presented
site plan. Any other questions before we move to finding of fact? I handed those out. I don't think we had to move to that yet. Did you have anything else you'd like to say, Jason?
As a homeowner.
Yes, I'm sorry. Was that? Yes, go ahead.
Most of those houses have somewhere between 10 and 15 foot as a setback.
Yeah,
I don't see that as a problem. I do know that when I built a house on Baker Street, even though there was no concrete sidewalk on that whole side, I was still required to put a sidewalk in.
Yeah.
Just for your information.
Okay.
And that was in 2019 when I built that.
And I think we should, honestly. I mean, for the town, as far as what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Part of it actually encourages some of the other neighbors to then put a sidewalk in. Or fix the one they've got.
Yeah, because it looks like, well,
becomes a
even
sidewalk.
the way with order, they don't have any, but basically we're the only two lots that don't have a sidewalk.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So,
Okay, is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Okay, again, if you vote no on any of these questions, you have to vote no on the variance. Based upon the evidence submitted, I find that number one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Mr. Melton?
Yes.
Mr. McManaway?
Yeah.
Mr. Osborne?
Yes.
Mr. Chris?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Mr. Melton?
Yes.
Mr. McManaway?
Yeah.
Mr. Osborne?
Yes.
Mr. Chris?
Yes.
And then the chair votes yes. Number three, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in use of the property. Mr. Melton?
Yes.
Mr. McManaway? Mr. Osborne?
Yes.
Mr. Chris?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Entertain a motion that we approve this variance
I'll make a motion to approve the variance.
with the
House to be built according to site plan as stipulation.
everybody understand the variance and then the site plan will be followed. How did you vote on the variance, Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Manaway?
Yes.
Mr. Osborne?
Yes.
Mr. Chris?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, pass 5-0. Thank you. Okay. Last item on our agenda. 2023 B100542. And filed by Kurt Neubauer. Would you like to go ahead?
Sure. In preparation for the meeting this weekend, I'm sorry I didn't make enough copies, but this is just some extra drawings that might help us. And I also went ahead and put together a short statement of the hardship and a statement about our discussion I had with the affected neighbor. My wife Carolyn and I purchased the property at 1424 East Shore, so it's on the lake. It's kind of funny that most people say, what house at 1424? It was completely covered, quite honestly, with a lot of landscaping and dwarfed by the houses next door to it. It's on a very narrow lot, as you can see by the plot plan. It's on the back of the packet you were given beforehand. We purchased the home for a very specific reason of making it our primary residence. It's not a secondary residence for us. It will be our primary residence for the family this year. We also, for a number of reasons, but really we really want to do this. As one of them is that we are preserving the home as a historical preservation. So we're working with the Indiana Department of Historical. I think I said it on here, the Division of Historic Preservation and Archaeology at the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. Now, of course, that means there's a tax incentive for us for doing that, so that's part of the reason for doing it. But we're also very interested in preserving the house in a way that would be representative of these houses that were built early on along the lake shores, fishing cottages, and things like that. Of course, very few of the houses. Oh, good. Yeah, my wife manages that. And he did the same thing, but he did it on a commercial level, which is much more difficult. This is a residential basis. So our essentially the existing houses, they weren't built very big back at the time, obviously, right before the turn of the last century, and it's about 1,700 square feet, and so it's quite a small house by today's standards. We're wanting to make the upstairs of the second floor from 4 bedrooms and a very tiny bath into a master suite, a guest room with a bath, and an office. And in order to do that, we do need some additional space. So we're essentially talking about pulling a gable bump out on what we call the back of the house on the lake. So this is the street side of the house, and putting in some additional space. So it's probably about 15 or 16 feet by about 9 or 10 feet. Again, we're in the planning stages of actually what we can do with that, and we're going to be coming before technical review committee in order to evaluate the technical issues of the foundation out there right now. So what we'll be doing is building over what's right now the kitchen and what was kind of a powder room kind of thing, and building a second floor above the existing structure. So we're not expanding the foundation in any way of the property, and we really can't. As you can see, we're right on the lot line. So the other statement on the first page here is just that I did go to Gary and Kim Warren, they're friends of ours. That's the affected side of the house. They're to the north of us, and we walked around in their house and we looked out the windows, and we actually were thinking about doing this bump out across the whole house, the whole back of the house. When I looked at it with them, it was clear that was just too much of an affront to their views and that type of thing. And so we agreed that setting it back a little bit from that one corner would be helpful. And it would be more aesthetically pleasing from their point of view. And so I agreed to that. They agreed. And I think that's about it. I can explain anything else about it.
So the foundation is not changed, the size of the foundation is not
That's
changing
correct.
at all.
That's correct. Yeah, we're breaking into the side yard setback at the second level. We're not going any further into the side yard setback at the foundation.
I think this photograph shows it well.
Yeah.
Which one?
And the other two views.
Okay, see, I haven't seen that.
Okay.
Oh, here,
That's
I
right.
can-
He didn't have a copy.
Yeah,
That's right.
How do you get around the house? Because there's so, I mean, legally, your neighbors can say you can't be on my property. Because, I mean,
On the
honestly,
south side of the house, I have enough room to walk around.
you do both sides.
Not on both sides. This house, the corner, the one corner that we're looking at here, this corner. That's why I showed this house. This is the Warren's house in more detail here. This corner of the house right here actually is right up.
Right. So do you realize that this house came in front of us before?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I just want to make you aware of that.
No, I'm fully aware of that.
Okay.
And the unaffected neighbor, which is our list, is also friends of ours. You know, and I understand his concerns and the complaints he's brought before, and I believe there's a letter that he wrote. And he'll probably explain the same thing. I don't know what it said, but I assume he'll just say the same thing he has all along, is that he certainly believes it's an inappropriate house, given the way that the shore has developed over the years. But our intent is to, again, live there full time and to try to preserve a house that represents what it was.
I think this is a perfect example of how a property can be rebuilt on the same footprint
Mhm.
and made much better. Because what they wanted to do was line this,
You want to turn it.
Turn it.
He wanted.
and there was so much objection to it, we turned that down.
Mhm.
But that doesn't stop from building on the same footprint.
Mhm.
And which we have, and to me, this is a perfect way to do it. You haven't changed the footprint at all.
He's a variance required. Well, because the overhang is what he's really required, what you're after, the top, correct?
No.
No.
I thought it's not changing it at all.
That upper gable on the north side of that new structure that would be built, that actually cuts into the 10-foot setback to the Warrens on the north. So we're just, out of abundance of caution, we're asking you to approve that the new structure that will be built will actually fall within that 10-foot setback. Partially.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, but you were actually after. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I kind of was
it's
wondering the
only
same
building
thing.
Additional structure at the second level.
Yeah, the architect felt like since it was in that space, they should apply for a variance.
Okay, that's my next question is why would he have to come in
Not
front
even
of
clear
us?
if it's necessary, but
Well, it's, right, again,
They're making a change to it.
make it
It's
change.
non-conforming, and really, if they do.
They're in a non-conforming lot still on
You're
both
not
sides.
making it any more conforming,
But
but you're increasing
you're
non-conformity
used to the
by
non-conforming, but not
raising
making
it
it.
even higher, even though it's not setback, but it's still,
All right.
yeah.
All right, okay.
It's probably best that they do.
Right.
And I agree, they probably, I don't know.
Mr. Riss did ask to have his letter
Yes.
read in, and he did tell me that he was gonna inform the family that he was gonna submit a letter. It just says, on behalf of the Riss family, I appreciate the opportunity to share our concerns. Pleased to report the owners of 1424 East Shore, Kurt and Caroline Neubauer, are respected friends. In 1902, when the cottage at 1424 East Shore Drive was built, there apparently were no minimum lot standards. Today, this extremely narrow 35-foot wide non-conforming lot is more than 50% below the current 75-foot minimum standard. Our review finds no other East Shore lots with widths less than approximately 50 feet. The 1424 ESD cottage's northeast corner is inches from the property to the north, and the cottage's southwest corner is slightly more than 1 foot from our property to the south. If we did not allow them to use our property, they would be challenged to transfer lawnmowers and other equipment from the street side of the cottage to the lakeside. The included Exhibit A demonstrates the awkwardness of a cottage home on such a non-conforming lot, how the cottage nearly touches the properties of both the north and south neighbors. Also, how the southwest property corner is positioned near the middle of the cottage's lakefront. This extremely narrow 35-foot lot does not allow for a cottage home with acceptable setbacks. Therefore, we prefer the cottage not be enlarged by any additions to its current physical size. In fact, it would be preferred to reduce the size to allow a workable setback. Hopefully, in the future, the building standards will be modified so such an extremely non-conforming property would not be possible. And then there's the picture on the back of the letter that shows the GIS lot. I just wanted to make sure it was read into the minutes. You have a copy of this, John.
It's kind of hard to even establish an ordinance that requires for size to be considered conforming when you've got lots of property around that lake that are anywhere from 35, some of them got 180 or whatever feet wide. But when you come up with new ordinances, you set a standard what you want.
You got that, you have to have grandfather things in.
Yeah. We got
Or you can go in and tear down the whole
and-
thing and start over.
Yeah.
And we can't do that.
Yeah, and I appreciate this because I know in the past, there's been contractors coming in on their lots. And they cleared them out, cleared the property and it sits for a year, they've already vacant lot. It's still a lot of record, but they don't have to put the house back on the same footprint. They want to put one straight across the whole property. And I mean, I appreciate it's like what Dan said, what you're doing, you know, it's historical.
When was this house built, Mr. Do you know?
The record says 1902, just like Mr. Risk referenced, but we believe based on the historical artifacts that it was probably between 1895 and 1900.
Okay.
I think the same behind house was like 1898.
Right. I think many houses were built right in that couple of year period.
Okay, comments, questions?
Just one. You mentioned that this came before BZA previously, so that was before my term. What was that matter at that time?
The request was to
No,
well,
he wanted to build on the same footprint. He wanted the same lot, he wanted the same house, but it was not built on the same footprint. He wanted the same dimensions.
to
But
line.
he wanted to move it.
Oh, so he wanted to move the foundation, more or less.
Correct.
Oh, okay,
It was going to be a tear down.
okay.
Right.
And it was going to be, but he wanted to position it so it wasn't hanging over both sides.
Right.
But there was objections on, some pretty strong objections.
But it did not go to finding of facts.
No.
It got withdrawn.
Did you want to see if anyone online has a comment?
Yes, please.
Okay. If anyone online has a comment, unmute yourself, please.
Actually have some diehards on.
There's still people on, but no one's
Glad to
unmuting.
have an audience. I thought everybody was gonna walk out after that.
I feel like those of you who stayed should partake in the brownies after this meeting's over. Please.
You said you didn't.
When I'm long done with this job, I'll be coming in here with baked goods because I empathize with this plan commission and PZA.
I had the wonderful experience in a suburb of Chicago of being in the BZA.
Yeah,
foot
4 foot,
from the north side. The side yard.
but it said required 10 foot.
Side yard.
It is side yard.
It's side yard, it's side yard.
Understanding 4 foot setback already exists. But it's just up there.
Right. Right.
Okay, is everybody ready for finding of facts? Again, if you say no on any of the questions, you must vote no on the variance. Based upon the evidence submitted, I find that number one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Mr. Melton.
Yes.
Mr. Manaway.
Yes.
Mr. Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. Christ.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Mr. Melton.
Yes.
Mr. Manaway.
Yes.
Mr. Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. Christ.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Number three, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in use of the property. Mr. Melton.
Yes.
Mr. McManaway.
Yes.
Mr. Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. Christ.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. I'd entertain a motion that we approve this variance.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and properly second. We approve this variance. Any further discussion? All those, how do you vote on the variance? Mr. Melton.
Yes.
Mr. McManaway.
Yes.
Mr. Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. Christ.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Approved 5-0.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Great presentation.
New business. Tell me for the board that you're gonna need a couple.
We had another case that was supposed to go tonight that was published. But
My wife's talking.
but the contractor for that homeowner was not prepared to come in, so we pulled it off the agenda. I'm guessing that one will come before you next month.
Okay.
Along with perhaps another one. 415. And then there have been some other properties coming in. One's coming in for TRC next Thursday. I don't think that'll end up being a variance case. But, I mean, things are still very active. But I definitely think you're going to have 2 next month. Hopefully, that'll be it.
Plus. 415.
I'm including that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're not in the middle of this.
Yeah, we are not. And then if you,
Oh, here.
yes. And they are not allowed to let any go home with me, so they like to have the audience partake. And then under building commissioner
Wait a
report,
minute, guys.
the only thing I have under building commissioner report is what I shared with the plan commission. The council approved a new job description for building commissioner that we're calling community planning manager / building commissioner. We want somebody to do what they're approved to do, a minimum of 20 hours a week, but as long as they don't go up to full-time hours, that job will involve more planning. We'd like that person to handle things like comprehensive planning, ordinance changes that you all want to study, the plan commission may want to direct that person to do research on. We also want someone with a skill set to be able to handle communications, public notices. We're looking for someone who could also potentially be cross-trained into other areas. The council approved changing that job description. We're hoping that will also grow the potential applicant pool rather than just call it a building commissioner position. And then I've requested from the county to give us an annual report of the number of permits we processed, fees, et cetera, so that we know what we're collecting and if it will potentially cover full-time hours for that position, or, you know, Russ usually did a monthly on that, but he was manually counting them because I came in September. I'm not going to manually count. And a lot of those applications got closed. So it's not like I can see them in the online permit system. So we will get a report from the county. And then eventually when we do hire this person, the county has offered to help do some training with the online permit system. It's somewhat intuitive for people with computer skills. So I don't know that there's going to be a ton of training needed, but we do want that person to understand the workflow and how what we do here affects the county and vice versa. And then Ty Adley has offered also to help fill the gaps when I'm gone. My hope is that both the TM and that position will be in place before I go, but I will put like a hard stop somewhere in there. My hard stop is February 10th, but that's probably moving out into end of March timeframe, depending on how things go with these replacements. So I will still schedule the next probably 2 sets of meetings for Plan Commission and BZA. And then hopefully we can get that person in place and start training before I leave. And Karen and I work tightly on these public notices and the agendas, et cetera. You know, you're used to her posting the book out, she puts the agendas out, we kind of, so she's got some background to help the person coming in as well. But obviously this is a learning experience, and I haven't done things perfectly and figured out the ordinances perfectly or zoning perfectly. We would ideally like someone with some expertise in that so that these people don't have to come back 4 more times. But that's where we're at with that. So that's really all I have.
I want to commend you for what you've done. I mean, you came in blind to really what was being done, and you have taken it by the horn, so to speak. And I mean, there's a lot of contractors out there actually bragging about you. So. I am too. Even though you're making it work harder on me.
You make damn good brownies too. Anybody like one?
That'll come
get
back.
one. Jenny shares.
Provide for you.
I would also like to read a statement on behalf of the board that we want to extend a grateful and heartfelt thank you for the many years of service that you've provided to the town of Culver. You've tirelessly served the town in so many different capacities for so many different years, for so many years, more than 2 decades. You've willingly accepted the challenges and have been responsible for many of the accolades that the town has received. You've served the community in innumerable other ways as volunteer and board member of the many civic organizations in both Culver and Marshall County. And you've been responsible for bringing the stellar designation from the state of Indiana to the town of Culver and to Marshall County, and the benefits both have received as such. You will be sorely missed by us, and we wish you great success in the future.
Our next meeting will be February 16th, 6:30. I guess we should have a motion. Do I have a motion that we adjourn?
I think you handled it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, we're adjourned. Okay, please get a brownie before you go.
Yeah, those are killers.